Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm here today to talk about a book that I hate so much. I'm just gonna get right into it. The Secret History is a book written by Donna Tartt. It's in the dark academia genre. I put it in air quotes because it's not a real genre like fantasy or sci-fi. It's kind of like, you know, a mini genre. I don't know what academic terms are. Anyway, so there's this guy. His name is Richard, I'm pretty sure, and he wants to be a pretentious little bastard, which I'm completely in support of as someone who was a pretentious bastard for like 2 years when I was 14. It's there in the prologue. This is not a spoiler. In the prologue, it's Richard talking about how they, not how, but the fact that they murdered their friend, Bunny. And then you get into the book and you like time skip backward, and it's basically the build up to how that thing happened. And this book is hot garbage. Before I get into actually talking about why this book is hot garbage, I'm just gonna preface it by saying I didn't finish this book. I DNF'd it at about 60%, I believe. I was listening to it on audiobook. Those may be factors that make you hate me or make you think that my review isn't valid. If that's true, then you should probably leave right now because I am going to rip into this book. I hate it so much. Yeah, okay, that being said, let's get into the actual book. Now, I find the academics in, you know, colleges doing shenanigans that usually involve some kind of murder for some reason. I find that a very intriguing kind of book. I don't know why this was so bad, but yeah, I find it very interesting. That's the reason that I initially wanted to read The Secret History, because I have a Tumblr account and I follow a bunch of people who post dark academia stuff, or like dark academia Tumblrs, and they are very, it seems interesting. I went into this book wanting to love it, and yet Donna Tartt did not deliver. I don't really like to talk about books that I DNF'd because I don't like DNFing books and I don't like dwelling on it. I like to just move on, but this book infuriated me so much, and also because I seem to be like one of the only people who doesn't like it. Yeah, okay. This book, spoilers by the way, I'm gonna get into spoilers in this video. I don't know when, I don't know where, I didn't plan anything out. I just turned this thing on and then I started talking. So yes, okay. This book is just, it's so poorly written. I've seen so many people praise Donna Tartt's writing style, and I cannot think of a single instance in this book where I stopped and went, oh, I actually love the way she wrote that, because every time I stopped to think of her writing style, I was just going, this lady has never heard of the phrase show don't tell. Like, the whole time they're talking about how much Bunny is like they kill him, their friend, they kill him, and you would expect some kind of build-up. You would expect something to happen, some kind of, you know, like here's how Bunny is terrible. But instead of seeing a bunch of buildup about how Bunny is, you know, has all these qualities, you just get told Richard is just narrating to you how Bunny is like this, and then you have to believe it. You get like one example from Richard just like talking to you, talking like at you, the reader, going, Bunny said this to me, and you're like, oh, that sucks. What else did he do? And you don't get to find out because Donna Tartt she just tells you that you aren't supposed to like him, and it's where's the emotion? And speaking of emotion, none of these characters have any. Like, I think honestly the most well-developed character in this book is Bunny, and they kill him like less than halfway through the book, and the rest of it is just, I didn't finish it because all they were doing after that happened was just drinking, smoking, drinking, smoking. Like, that's it. They don't do anything else. It's just exhausting. The plot ends before the halfway mark of the book, and then you're just left with a book about people who are not having any emotions about the murder they just committed, not facing any consequences for the murder they just committed, and like, what the hell? I mean, I guess there's a chance that the book suddenly gets good, like, right after I stopped or something, but I am not willing to bet my life on it. The point that I read up till, or like listened up till, is it's so mind-numbingly boring. None of the characters are well developed. If you asked me, like, what is Richard like as a person, I have to be like, Richard? Who is that? Like, I barely remember their names. Like, it's so bad. I know that there were 5 people in the group before Richard got there. I know there's Richard, I know there's Bunny, I don't know what Bunny's real name is anymore. I know there's a Henry, I know there's the twins whose names both start with C's, and there's another guy, and I cannot for the life of me remember anything about him because they're so poorly written. They have nearly no character traits. The only one apart from Bunny who kind of has a character is Henry, and his character is just being very quiet. And like the fact that Donna Tartt wrote such a long book but neglected to give any of her characters an actual interesting character is so annoying. The fact that I had a thought and then I forgot it. I'm gonna move on to Julian and why I think he's a terrible character. The whole point of Julian is that he's this mysterious, or not mysterious I guess, but he's this like super charming, interesting professor of the classics who kind of like ropes these students into, you know, they like idolize him, they believe like his worldview, he's like so charismatic, he like talks about how he thinks the classics are better than everything else, even though that's, I'll get to that later, but he like has these beliefs and he like talks to these students and they have like discussions about big ideas in life and then eventually like start thinking more and more like him, like as a concept. I love that so much. Like that's such an interesting concept. And even just like in like as like you know, I'm in college, I have college professors that I love, and if I I could see, you know, like a real like twisted version of that and like deconstructing how much influence teachers have on your life, how much influence like a mentor figure that you really look up to can have on your ideals and the kind of person that you are. Like, that's such an interesting thing. And also, I love classics. Like, I just love them. I haven't read as many of them as I would have liked to, but I love them. I find them so interesting. I'm reading Dracula right now with my book club. I have a book club now. I'm reading Dracula right now with my book club. It's very interesting. Like it's fun to discuss. It's fun to talk about the ideas that are being discussed. But Julian, the issue with Julian is that he only does it once. There's one scene in the entire book in which Julian brings up an idea, kind of idealizes it to these students who think he's hot shit, and then the students are like, we should do that, and that's the bacchanal, I think that's how you say it, I don't remember, but that's the thing, like he brings that up, he does that, and I'm just like, oh, like, you know, I would love to have more of this. I would love to have my ideas be challenged by this book character who is, you know, like a college professor who's like very learned, who's kind of become too obsessed with all of these things. Like, that would be so interesting, but instead of being interesting, Julian doesn't do anything. He has one scene like that, and then he's just, every time they mention Julian, I was like, who the hell is that? Who's like Julian? I haven't heard of him in like an hour, and like he's barely in the book. So how can he have such a big influence on these people's lives if he's barely a part of their lives? And also, Julian, just as a concept, I find it very interesting. However, I don't know if Donna Tartt has ever met a classics professor, but I have. And that's such like an unrealistic like thing to say, because if you like, you know, classics is such a vague term. Like, that is one of my big issues with saying like classics, is just like, that could mean literally anything. That could mean like Jane Austen, that could mean Sappho. Those are completely, like, those are so far apart from each other. Like, the historical context are completely different, the cultural contexts are completely different. Like, all of these movements we've had in art and like literature, they vary so much in the field of classics that if you just say, oh, he's a classics professor, that could literally mean anything before like the 20th century. Like, before the 20th century, and he's a classics professor. And honestly, a lot of 20th century works are also considered classics. Like, at this point, I don't know, it's set in the 80s, maybe back then they weren't, but like it's so vague. And the fact that, first of all, the fact that these people think that learning Greek is like hot shit, and like, oh, we're so special because like we are learning Greek. You know who else speaks Greek? All of Greece. Like, you're not special. Second of all, I don't know what kind of point I'm at right now, but it's so exhausting to like, I wanted to relate to these characters. I wanted to like see their descent into like going from studying stuff like this to like believing it, but you barely get to see that because they're barely ever like studying stuff like this. They're not talking about any philosophies apart from like the one scene that is significant, and in that they're like just shitting on like modern life and like how it's bad, and like in the classic times, you know, blah blah blah. But it's like, you know, if you look at ancient Greece, it was a long time. Things were not the same. Like, the period of time that we call this was ancient Greece, things changed so much. Like, cultures changed, people's perceptions of things changed. Like philosophers in Greece had arguments with each other. There was I think it was Plato who was like, oh, now that we have like, you know, all this writing down, people are gonna forget how to remember things, and like it's bad for society. Like, you know, like it's like that was so different. You like it's just like there's no way that you can actually study like classics and then be like this, and then be like, this sounds like a great idea, or at least not without enough character development and time devoted in your book to showing why the characters think this. There was this one scene, I don't remember exactly what it was that Julian was saying, but he said something and I was just sitting there going, I had to like pause the audiobook and be like, that is objectively incorrect. Like, I know for a fact that you're wrong. And it's like, you know, I'm a junior in college, so is Richard. Like, I'm not even a classics student. I'm an engineering student, and I know this. Just because I like doing some research sometimes, if you've dedicated like 2 years of your college life and career to studying classics, there's no way you can have all these misconceptions about like how much better life was back then. And if you do, it has to be shown why you think these things in the narrative. Like, you cannot write a book about people who are so stupid and they're like, you know, not people who are so stupid because they believe all this stuff, and not like talk about why they believe those things. Like, you can't do that. It's exhausting. There is so much homophobia and sexism and racism in this book that it's just, I mean, I guess it was a different time, and it was before I was born, so I cannot speak to what the cultural atmosphere was like back then, but like, I don't think you should have, I don't think the narrative actually did anything with it. I don't think there was any deconstruction of how much, you know, how much xenophobia there can be in some academic spaces. I think that would have been an interesting conversation to have. I think that, you know, like, it's true that people can be very terrible to one another, but if you're writing a book, you are creating all of these people. You can choose to have them not be like that. You can choose for it to, it didn't have to be a part of the book. The book could have just been these people having some bad ideas and then doing some things, but that's not what the book was about, because it's not in the book. But like, it didn't have to contain all of the homophobia. Like, they didn't do anything with it. They didn't do anything with, oh, like, Bunny is super homophobic and keeps throwing around slurs. Like, that was it. Like, there was nothing more. And also, I just find it very funny for someone who's so obsessed with classics to be like so homophobic. Like, not funny, but I find it ironic, I guess, because so many of like the classic authors and artists were gay. Like, they just were. Or maybe they weren't gay, but they were queer. Like, it's just so many of them were, and like so many, and it's just like, you know, if you are someone who's so obsessed with studying these works, I don't think it is possible to have such a deep misconception about how much gay there was in history, for lack of a better phrasing. Ancient Greece was super gay. I mean, they were sexist as hell, but they were gay as hell also. Like, you can't be like, oh, ancient Greece was a better time, we should live like that again, but also be homophobic. Like, those two things don't mix, because like ancient Greece was gay. Like, they just were gay. Like, and it's not discussed. No one's ever like, hey Bunny, you know, you keep throwing around slurs, but like, all of those Greek men were gay. Like, all of them. I'm exaggerating, please don't take this, like, I feel like BookTube is gonna kill me if anyone like finds this video because so many people love this book, and it's not good. It's just bad. I don't know why you people like it. I can be like, okay, I guess you would like this book if this thing, but I cannot think of a single reason someone would like this book, because it's very bad, and it's not just bad, but it's also really long, so you have to sit through it for like such a long period of time, and I'm gonna get cancelled for sure. But yeah, it's so poorly written. It's poorly written. The characters are not well developed. The plot is over halfway through the book, and there's nothing for the characters to do for the rest of the book. The scene in which they've been building up to with the whole plot, you don't get to see it. Like, the scene where Bunny dies, you don't get to see that. It's just, Richard tells you in narration, he's like, oh, and then we did this, and I'm like, why? Like, why didn't Donna Tartt write that scene out? Like, we know how it's gonna go, but it could still have had so much tension. We could have had some emotions. None of these characters, they killed a whole person. They committed 2 murders, and one of them, the first one, they don't care about it. None of them are like, oh my god, we killed a person. Like it was an accident, right? That's how I remember it. I hope I'm right. But like, even if it was, if I accidentally killed someone, I would be so distraught. Like, what kind of a person do you have to be to not even be like, not at any point in the book do they have like any kind of emotional reaction to that murder and Bunny's murder? They're just like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do this, but then they don't talk about it. They're not like, they don't have any emotions about the fact that they're, you know, they've been friends with this guy for like, for the other people in the group have been friends with him for like several years, and they're just like, eh, it's fine, we're just gonna kill him now and he's gonna be dead and we don't care. Like, they have no emotions at all, and that scene is not even in the book. Like, what kind of, why would you not put that in the book? There's this one part in the book where everyone in that group apart from Richard is like, and Bunny is like doing a bacchanal, which is like a freaking cult ritual, and it's just, they just tell you, and like, I know Richard was supposed to be left out and stuff, but maybe she could have used like a different point of view so that we could have gotten to see it, because like, there are 2 very interesting scenes in this book that don't get written out. We don't see them, we just hear about them from the characters. It's like a second-hand like information, like, oh, by the way, we had a cult ritual, but like have fun. Like, you don't get to know anything about it. You, the reader, don't get to know anything about it apart from the fact that it happened and we killed someone, and we're not going to discuss that either. And it's just like I feel like instead of talking about how these characters are like, I don't know, upset, having some kind of emotional reaction to literally anything, she's just like, describing the scenery, describing a different part of the scenery, drinking, and then doing some drugs, and then drinking some more. And I'm like, that's not character development. It's not good writing. It's just not. It's not good. It's not well written. I don't know why people love her writing style. She does not talk about anything that she should be talking about. She doesn't talk about the characters aren't developed. The plot ends halfway through the book. Like, what? Who does that? And none of the characters are compelling enough to carry the rest of the book because they don't have any personalities. The mentor character is literally the most useless character I have ever seen. Like, he doesn't do anything. He's there for like one scene, and then that's it. That is like all you see of him. Why? Like, this could have been such a good book, but it's so bad because none of the characters are good. The writing sucks. The plot would have been so interesting if you actually got to see it. This book is way too long, like way too long. And the only developed character just dies. So the rest, like, I got so exhausted after just going through like, I think an hour or two of listening to these people like going to each other's places and then getting drunk. That's all they did. They didn't do anything else. Like this could have been such a good book. I'm so upset. I hate talking about books that I DNF because, you know, I'm like, I disliked it so much that I had to stop reading it. I don't want to like think about it anymore, but like this book is so bad, you guys, and like it's so hard for me to find people who agree with me. Like, I don't know, can someone please explain to me like why you like this book? Like why? Like, why would you do that? Why would you do that to yourself? This video is gonna be so long. I'm so exhausted. This book is terrible. It sucks so much. It is the worst thing I have ever had to sit through in my entire life. Okay, that's it. That's all I have to say. This book sucks. Goodbye. Please don't cancel.